Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Stormcaller hero class, as well as a bunch of teams that you can use for the event, as well as just in general for Guild Wars and for PvP. But first things first, as far as the hero class, it is a hero class that is restricted to the typing of Stryx, which means the event itself is a Stryx Suncrest combo as far as what you'll be able to use as troops. Has a red mastery with a yellow as far as what it ends up using for its weapon. So of course it's using yellow weapons with it. With that being said, it does come with a pretty decent yellow weapon that's actually worth mentioning. It is the first weapon in the game, or the first anything in the game as of this current moment in time, that can counter out storms properly. Unlike other counters, which will just remove or change a storm into a different storm, this this weapon completely removes the storm. So it deals true damage to an enemy, and if there is a storm, it then deals 15 additional true damage to all enemies, which is insanely good earlier on in the game. The later you are in the game, the less effective that's going to be, but if you're at like a level 100 range, 200 range, even below 500, that's a pretty substantial amount of damage to be doing on top of what you're already doing with your poke. And the most noteworthy thing is it then removes the storm. Unlike anything else in the game, it can remove storms now. So that might be a mechanic we start seeing on some other content, so that we can actually storm counter, but at this current moment in time, this weapon is the only thing that can do it. And of course it takes 14 yellow mana, as all the weapons for the classes are only a single color. As far as the talent tree, it does have one pretty noteworthy trait. This trait was originally going to be something else, which was going to make this class relatively bad for the most part. However, this trait alone has made it already one of the top half of hero classes, and that is the fact that it gets to do a light storm every single turn. Similar to Sun Spirit that gets to do red every turn, this thing gets to yellow every single turn, so you have perpetual yellow storm. On top of that, you also get to do 2 damage every single extra turn, which doesn't do too much damage, but there's a few other abilities that are pretty good on it that are also extra turn dependent, and in combination with it, it tends to be pretty helpful to be able to do. It's kind of like a reverse huge in that you gain 2 life every single turn, except this is 2 damage to an enemy every single extra turn that you end up applying. Other than that, as far as its talent trees, as Wind, Storm, and Life. Storm is really good, Life is okay, and Wind is horrifically bad. As far as what you would choose, for the very first one, you would either choose 8 life or 8 armor. Unless you were specifically using a weapon that boosts on armor, you're essentially going to always go into life there for the 8 extra life. Next, you would go into either the cleanse or the extra 2 missile magic or the 2 mace magic. The 2 missile magic probably being slightly more relevant, as that is the typing of the weapon that comes with this hero class, so you might use it to give it 2 additional damage to your poke. But more often than not, you're going to be using this for its cleanse all allies. Next up, you have the ability to 3 of them that could potentially be useful, depending on what you're running. Either 1 extra yellow magic to all yellows, 2 extra recovery just for your hero, or 10% mana start to all of your yellow allies. I personally don't care for like the 10%, 15% mana starts. While they're somewhat helpful, I would definitely just prefer going for the extra 1 magic for them compared to a little bit of mana, like 1 or 2 that you might end up starting with. As far as the next one, it doesn't really have anything that is particularly good. Brown Storm is generally not going to be good since it only lasts for 1 turn, and you're going to have Perpetual Yellow Storm. Centaurs is something that you would pretty much never use this class with, and the only thing that really leaves you with is, well, I shouldn't say that, Ward Breaker might end up getting used with it. That's about the only instance you might use this little 1 magic. But other than that, you're pretty much always going to go for the Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire is a random enemy when an ally dies. There's not too many teams in combination that you'd use this for, but if your hero happens to be in 2nd slot and you have a bunch of harpies constantly summoning to your 1st slot, since it tends to synergize pretty well with them, you can end up doing that and then keep Fairy Firing every single time one of them die. I won't do too much, but it will be somewhat helpful, if nothing else. Fairy Fire, of course, doing 50% extra spell damage. As far as its next perk, you're pretty much always going to go into either the extra life every single time you take a green, or into the 2 extra attack for all yellows. This does synergize with 1 that is further down. However, attack you don't generally need in most yellow teams, and the kind of yellow teams that you may need it for, like a Divinish Bala, Quillen combo, and other things, you're likely not using this hero class in that context. So you're probably not going to need that too often. But of course, 4 life every single green helps keep your hero alive. If you're using it in 1st slot or 2nd slot, definitely helps make it quite a bit tankier. As far as this hero class, I would say it's mostly a 2nd slot as far as where it gets placed. It can theoretically run in every slot, however, it does not have really good tank ability for 1st slots, and it doesn't have excessively good cast if you're using it really far down in the team. So I'd say second slot's probably its most noteworthy location where you would use it in most situations, in most teams, though not always. And on its 70th, it gets one of its very best perks, and that of course is the explosion on a yellow every single extra turn. And given that it has perpetual yellow storm, this will never really be countered, unlike some things like Titan, where you might occasionally get like Spirit Fox and then not have a yellow on the board. This thing has such perpetual yellow storm that even if you get Spirit Fox, you're probably getting a yellow that will fall right back to go and replace it. So you're almost always going to have a yellow to be able to explode with its extra turn. Other than that, you could theoretically go use the extra green, though the extra explosion on the extra turn is probably going to be useful since you're already using the cleanse, and you're already going to be doing 2 damage. So you have 3 different things that'll be able to trigger every single time you do an extra turn, all 3 of which are decently useful, and the Child Sky is just useless. And as far as its last perk, there are 2 that are going to be particularly useful, and that is all Stryx allies gaining 1 attack every turn. This would normally be a completely useless perk on a class, however, this class does count as Stryx, and most of its teams that it uses 2, 3, or 4 Stryxes on the team, so this could theoretically be good. Stryxes aren't the best with gaining extra attacks, so I'm not exactly sure why they made it an attack. Really wish it was like a +1 magic buff or something. Would definitely have been way more useful, but it's attack. Stryxes don't normally get used in attack-oriented teams, but in this in combination with Gale Force, about the closest you'll be able to get to making them attack viable. Other than that, elementals, there are a few elementals that this could be used with, like Infernus, Aquaticus, probably most noteworthy Aquaticus, Wardbreaker, actually never mind, Wardbreaker's not elemental, but any of like the really big mythic legendaries elementals are the main things where this might end up coming into play. So once you finally get that, that's probably the one that you're going to be using more often. However, if your team is pure Stryx, you might consider going with the extra attack for your entire team. And that is the rundown on the hero. So let's go over a lot of teams, and by a lot of teams, I mean a lot of teams. I think I have about 7 here I want to go show real quick. So first things first, because I accidentally used all my sigils earlier, let's go over the things that you would use for the event itself in order to complete out the class event. There are 3 of them, one of which I will use, the other 2 I will just show. And the 2 that I'll go show is Stormcaller Low, Mang, Harpy Mage, Harpy, and Bladewing. Mang you can just get automatically, and these 3 lower rarity troops you can simply get just by throwing shards at the Stone Song faction at the portal there. Just put your Chaos Shards there. Harpy Mage is for the board clear, which it gets really quick off its 75% mana start. You then get a Dust Storm that will last for 1 turn that will help fill your 3 browns. Harpy is mainly just to make sure you can drain their mana so they don't end up casting as much. It also ends up giving you an extra brown to feed into your other 3 browns. And Bladewing is mainly just here for some instant kill potential, and you can also tap whatever you end up hitting with Mang to almost kill it. And other than that, you mainly, of course, just use the Mang to wipe out the entire enemy team. You could theoretically consider using Titan with this, as it would be slightly better with Titan. However, if you want to get extra EXP onto your Stormcaller, you can just use it with Stormcaller as well. As far as the mid-range one, this is something that you can run if you're just running into free battles. It's simply a Mountain Crusher into triple Queen Zachi. This will just allow you to keep exploding with your Zachis. It's dependent on Storm, of which you'll have brown and yellow perpetually, both of which feed right into your Zachi. And Mountain Crusher gives 2 EXP to all your other browns every single time it casts, which is your entire team when using this team. So you're basically just spamming them until you win, is the general premise that you're doing there. And other than that, what I used for the good majority of it is Nimbus Bow, Queen Zachi, Taloka, and Harpy Mage, where Harpy Mage does all of our explosions. Nimbus Bow ends up boosting based on all of our Stryxes and feeds a bunch of yellow and blue. We have Perpetual Yellow Storm on our... why is it currently showing Titan with this? That is not the correct class. With Stormcaller, obviously. So using that with Stormcaller, so we have Perpetual Yellow Storm going with it. Which feeds right into the weapon. There is the other weapon, which does have the purple... Oh, what was the other color for? I think it was purple-yellow, where you could feed its purple back into itself as well. However, this has Enchant and Silence, and because there's a Corvash this week on one of the battles, I would advise, if you have the Nimbus Bow, to use Nimbus Bow, as you'll be able to silence at the beginning of the battle to make sure that Corvash never drains you. I don't think I've been drained a single time this entire event, and we are actually on top 10 right now. So we didn't get drained once an entire time, because this bow just keeps silencing Corvash before it could do anything. Queen Zachi, of course, is just mainly for the damage. Really great mythic, or legend, I mean. It feels like a mythic legend from the Stone Song faction. You just throw some shards to get it. Taloka's a legend that you would have to find in keys, but it does scatter damage and does triple the amount based on if there's a storm and you're basically perpetually yellow storm, if not a brown, off of your perks that you have. And other than that, Harpy Mage again, just for the quick mana accumulation. especially if you have enchant and stuff. It pretty much just gets up guarantee in 2 turns, or 1 turn between the explosions and the enchant. You might not even need to do anything else, just throw it down and then just get the team rolling. Just keep spamming Queen Zachi and the bow until you can win. Use Toloka for cleanup and just win out the event. And it works pretty quick. I was actually averaging around a 35-second win per battle with that team, though I did have a lot of extra bonuses on top of it, which made it a little bit different. But I'll just go use it real quick because this is lower stats against something somewhat similar statted. This might be a little bit lower, but basically all we really have to do here, this is slightly different than the event, so we will have to directly go for red since we don't have enchants directly off of our start. Oh, we just have to do that, go and we can Nimbus Bow on a board like this in order to feed our yellow in. Currently we got more blue than yellow, but it's fine. Do that, and if they're within range, we can just go for the Toloka for the kill there, and just end up clearing it out. And works out pretty well. Let's see if I can find one that had a little bit higher stats. That'll go against Aquaticus team. It's funny, it's using a Harpy Mage too. Go figure. So this should be a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, that's about what the stats would be, a little bit closer. But right off the bat, gonna want to take our blues there. Not actually gonna need to cast Toloka though. We don't really need to go out of our way for it. We just need to get our Harpy Mage up. Since we don't have the enchant, go directly for the Queen Zachi. Normally I aim at Queen Zachi, since those are the 2 main things, and just the fact that you need her to keep the team rolling. Oh, we do have one issue here though. This is something that normally wouldn't happen. Whoops, we might actually need to evade this battle. This thing is, of course, only meant for the battles for the event. And one problem we have now is Submerge. Submerge, of course, being a hard counter to it. This is not something you would have to deal with in the event. As oddly enough, class battles do not have any battles that have Submerge, which is interesting. But, and definitely helpful in this kind of context with the team that we're using. However, we are up against it now, so it is a little bit weaker. It's one of the reasons why I probably wouldn't run this directly into PvP, though you could. It's because there's a bunch of Submerge. Every single thing on this team, other than the Nimbus Bow, does get hard countered by the Submerge mechanic, so do be wary of that. Oops, I did that to feed into mana. I didn't realize we already had our mana. But of course, this Toloka to clean up, and there we go. So that wasn't too bad, even though we did have a hard counter on it, on the opposing team. But there we go, and that's what you can use for the event, and theoretically out it for PvP, though I wouldn't really use it as a main PvP team. Next up, low damage true. Okay, that's the low true damage team with the, I guess I'm trying to find something that doesn't have skull spam. This one I do kind of want to go on a slightly lower one, because this is made for early game. So this is a really, really low rarity team. The highest thing on this team is a ultra rare, which are the Astral Spirit and the Diviner. But this is the new weapon from the hero class that you get for free just by winning 250 times on the hero class, where you get it by throwing, I think, about 500 gems at the event. I forget the exact amount, but normally you just get it for free from 250 wins while using Stormcaller as your hero class for your team. Diviners defeat us a bunch of yellow. It also has the option of enchanting, cleansing, or giving us more magic, all three of which would be good. Though, of course, we don't get to choose which one it is. Astral Spirit's mainly for the board control, ideally empowered, though not necessarily required. And we can do that to get a little bit of true damage press. Obviously, this is a pure true damage team. And with that, we could also go and Miststalker for cleanup. It ends up gaining extra magic every single time it gets a kill, and even if it doesn't kill, it gets to poison the enemy. Also gets to have extra purple, so we don't need a +1 it. And it has stealthy, so it won't get targeted, which is good since it can keep buffing up every single time it gets a kill. And other than that, we set our banner to a -blue, +2 green, or +1 yellow. This is mainly to 2-turn the Diviner if we end up getting a Surge, as well as giving the +1 that we need to ideally 2-turn this weapon, though more realistically 3-turn earlier on in the game when you'd be actually using a team like this. But yeah, these are around the stats that you'd be up against in early game. Obviously your stats would be lower than this though, but I have no way of lowering my stats. So we'll go right here and simply go remove these greens, so we can just take that yellow right there, start getting this weapon up. We have perpetual yellow storm, which means we're always going to have a storm to be able to deny with our weapon, meaning that we don't really ever get rid of our storm, even though that's theoretically one of the purpose of this weapon, is to make sure that there's no storm in play. But what we can also do is just utilize it in order to be able to always have a boost ratio for this. So we'll go throw it at him. It does look like he's going to get his ability because he survived with 1 HP. However, never mind. I forgot to show its perks that it has. And one of them is that it gets to destroy 3 random gems. Gains 1 magic every single time it casts, and the most noteworthy one is it drains 3 mana from the first enemy, has 5 scatter damage, which will allow you to bake some barriers, though it applies after the fact, so never mind, and also gets to gain 4 mana. So the most 2 noteworthy ones there is it gains 4 mana, and it drains 3 mana from the enemy. You do not get that 3 mana that it drains, however, you do get the 4 mana that it says it gives you 4 mana for, so pretty nice in that regard. Right here, I kind of just want to take a skull just because it kills him, even though he gets a lot of red. Hopefully he doesn't get to do too much off of that. It doesn't look like he will. If anything, it looks like we'll get to use it more than he does, which will be nice. Though then again, not exactly. We'll take that for now. Oh good, we do get a double skull. We get to throw his weapon again. And of course we just basically perpetually have a boost ratio for that. We're always going to get that 15 extra damage. The 3 destroys this gave us the skull too, so that worked out quite conveniently. But yeah, great true damage option for early game. Definitely helps out a lot, and it is finally a storm counter. If you didn't want to use this with this hero class, you could use it on other various teams to try to counter out storms. It'd be very, very situational, and you would just plug it into a team that can function with 3 troops on its own. But you can, of course, also use this to counter out storms, as long as it's not a perpetual storm, because obviously if it is a perpetual storm, it'll kind of do exactly what this class did, and that'll just keep replenishing it over and over again. So against things that do like single storms, would end up working out pretty well as a counter. Other than that, there are 2 Guild War options that we can kind of do. One is a slightly cheaper one, Rope Dart, Queen Zachi, and Harpy Mage, and then followed by the Vanya. Vanya, not really a troop I mention too often, though it does have 2 things that are pretty nice. One is that it has Bless, so you can end up countering out a bunch of stats effects. The other thing that's pretty good about it is it does get to summon a troop while doing a pretty high amount of AoE damage. Actually, it's more towards the mid-range. But assuming that you have about 2 Bless on your team, which generally you would after just a few extra turns, this would end up having, at least at this, what our stats currently are about 37 damage as far as how much damage output would end up doing. That's not too bad. It's not like Queen Titania high, but it ends up synergizing decently with various yellow teams or even purple teams, depending on the context. In this context, yellow team with our perpetual yellow storm. So it's something to consider. I personally wouldn't really be using this too much for Guild Wars, the hero class, just because I feel like it doesn't have any excessively good options. Though it could be that I just didn't test it enough. And this is the main one I would say if we were to go use it. Probably the one I would use it with. I still feel like we need a better mana generator for it. But in this case, I'm using it with the Scurvy Sea Dog, which allows us to convert right into Aquaticus. One thing that this hero class is insanely good with is Aquaticus. Aquaticus, I almost felt like doing every single team with Aquaticus, is because it's so ridiculously good with Aquaticus, but obviously we needed other options. But Aquaticus ends up synergizing pretty much every way with this, because you need the yellow storm. You don't really interfere with the blue, so even though you're not having like a blue storm, you still have a decent amount of blues on the board since you're Scurvy Sea Dogging into it. And yeah, you just get the Submerge, so you bring some tankability to it, which it has a lot of life, it just doesn't have any kind of way to tank. So that Submerge helps do it a little bit. And yeah, it just fills finally the storm gap that this has with Perpetual Yellow. Not the same as Perpetual Blue, but if I was to choose between using something like the Stormcaller hero class or using Skady, I would definitely go with the Stormcaller hero class, as Skady is a relatively bad troop, since it doesn't really apply much to your team other than like a really small mana burn, and mana burn can easily be countered, its freeze can easily be countered, and it doesn't really add much compared to this hero class. So over here, I think we're going to go for this, even though that's not going to kill, but we'll get a decent amount of damage in. Going to hit us back a few times, but looks like we'll still ultimately end up winning. We do have Queen Zachi right now, which I guess I will go for. Oh no, I guess I'll go for Skull. The problem with this thing, though, is it's a gigantic tank. It's going to keep trying to outlive everything we do here. We do have alignment, so I could feed right into the blue. This is the Aquaticus is the only blue on our team, so all of our blues will go directly to her. You may have noticed we also are, of course, using the yellow Doom weapon. This ends up converting all the purples to Doom Skulls, which you can end up doing whenever you have alignment in order to do a lot of damage. Right now we don't have it, so I'm just going to go for the Aquaticus and then probably clean him with the alignment that we have, as long as he doesn't kill our hero. No! No! Okay, Queen Zachi should be able to clean up there. Luckily we have Fairy Fire. One thing that the hero does, of course, is you can set it to Fairy Fire every single time you get a kill. And that does include when your allies die, I mean. And that does include when it dies itself. So even if it dies itself, even if you put it in the first slot, you will get at least one Fairy Fire out of it, like we did there, to increase our magic by 50%. But, and if that was to happen in Guild Wars, you'd probably want to keep trying to summon with Queen Zachi. She has a 35% chance per extra turn to summon a Harpy Mage, which you'd most likely want to use in order to replenish the troop that you just died. But obviously, this is not Guild Wars, so we didn't really need to worry about that right now. Other than that, the main team I would show with this, or main team I would probably use with this, and this is more in a PvP context, since you can't obviously use this for Guild Wars, and that is Harpy Mage, the Purple Doom Weapon, Queen Zachi, and Aquaticus. So this, I would personally say, is the strongest thing that I can find at the moment. I would end up really using this. And this is mainly in order to get our explosion. We can then go into Queen Zachi. Of course, this whole entire premise of this team is utilized around the fact that we have a perpetual yellow storm that we can also occasionally turn into a brown storm in order to fill Queen Zachi a little bit better. But basically, we just get to constantly keep exploding. If our first slot dies, we just simply get a few extra turns and replace it back with a Harpy. Which is one of the other big reasons why you run this for second slot. The only thing we don't really get to utilize, oh, and also this can convert all yellows into Doom Skulls, which there's going to be plenty on the board. The only thing this team doesn't really utilize off the hero class is the magic. We don't gain 5 magic because we are not using a yellow weapon. However, it's much better to use this. I do have the banner set to purple so that we could try getting a little bit more mana to actually feed this, because you'll notice it's a little bit hard to actually feed this up off of just the explosions. So we could just simply take a purple to try to fill it up. So this battle looks like we will not be able to, so maybe we might want to show another one just real quick. But this will end up doing a lot of damage because we're generally going to have quite a hefty amount of yellow on the board that we'll be able to utilize in order to transform that over to a bunch of Doom Skulls. They'll feed right into that weapon and just kill them out. But we'll go cast this out and should be good to go. Looks like we won't be able to get this weapon this time around, but we'll go try one more battle. Of course, we get it right at the end after everything's already died. But we'll go and give it one other shot. Okay, never mind. I was just saying how big of a troll team that was the other day, too. The triple firebomb with a life and death. That's funny. But anyways, let's not fight that. Let's go fight... oh, maybe we shouldn't fight that either. We'll fight it. That's even more annoying, though. The web spinner with a life and death. So it doesn't have skull spam behind it, oddly enough. Hopefully we're okay. We do not have a counter to Entangle, unfortunately. We normally would if we were using this hero class in first slot, because it has the cleanse. So right there, boom, it would be cleansed. However, that does not have cleanse, so we can't use it right now. But we should be fine. Hopefully she'll be unentangled in a turn or two. So it's going to be a while before we even get full mana on our weapon, so it's not going to be too big a deal yet. But we'll just do that. Hopefully he doesn't end up hitting a skull. That's going to be completely luck based on if it does or doesn't. Oh, we have perfect alignment. No, I guess we still do it for the damage. So normally that would do an absurd amount of damage to his other troops. Apparently still enough. Okay. Because even though it's entangled, we still get to hit the Doom Skulls, and we still get the AoE, of course. So that's what you normally use that for. The sheer amount of purple that you have on the board, you'll be able to utilize in order to end up, or the sheer amount of yellow, I mean, just gets converted into Doom Skulls, and then you just go crazy with that. Also gets to create a Doom Storm. You do have Doomstorm on it. I'm pretty sure this one is the thing that ends up doing the Doomstorm. It's one of the other reasons why this is actually the best of the, or Bone Storm, I mean. It's one of the reasons why this is one of the best of the weapons as well, is the fact that it does have a actual Skull Storm related to it, which none of the other 6, or the other 5 Doom weapons have attached to them. Right here, I guess we'll just go for this explosion, just because I normally would cast that right there, but given that it's entangled, it substantially decreases the amount of damage it has. I'm not going to go for it there. Let's clear the board with this, and hopefully we'll be able to get ourselves a good alignment here. So, of course, we have the yellow converts. It does look like we have a decent amount. It will kill out his hero, so I will go for it, because it's pretty important to kill it out. No, he ended up getting a summon, and a summon. Wow. Of course. Okay. Well, that's pretty much that team in a nutshell. Looks like we'll still win, but gosh, it is annoying. Of course, Skull Spam is one of the easiest way to kill this out, and while this isn't like a pure Skull Spam team, it does have a Skull Spam option, of course, through this weapon. So, you still get to have a Skull Spam. Wow, how many summons did he get this battle? Luckily, it looks like we got the win right here. Almost. If we weren't entangled, we would. Unfortunately, though, we're also still entangled, which makes it so we won't have the win right here. I'm just going to go for this just to get some board clear. There's so many skulls with the Skull Storm and everything. I think we can kill it out with that. Oh, yeah, we're still entangled, too. Gosh. Or not. Okay, we'll throw that down. That should be enough. There we go. Oh, and even through Entangle, even through Webs, it still has enough damage to clear through. And, yeah, that's that team. So, obviously not like the greatest PvP team in the game, though, honestly, of everything I've tested so far, that is the strongest thing you can use this hero class for, from what I am aware of. But as far as this hero class, definitely a decent utility option. I don't feel like it's the absolute strongest in the game, probably around 6th or 7th or so. Maybe 5th, definitely the top, like, 1/3 or so of hero classes, definitely top half easily. But it's a fun hero class to have. Definitely would consider getting it to level 70, as that's where it gains most of its value. By level 70, you'll have Cleanse every extra turn, 2 damage every extra turn, Perpetual Light Storm, and an Explosion every single extra turn. You can also start utilizing this hero class pretty early, since it gets a good majority of its useful stuff, the 2 damage every extra turn, the Light Storm every extra turn, and the Cleanse every extra turn by level 5, or, you know, by the time the class is at the perks for level 5, which takes, like, less than, like, 10 minutes or so to end up getting it to that point. So very, very quick to get it to a point where it's actually usable. So something to consider to have. just to have as a utility option, if nothing else, for Yellow Guild War Day or any team where you might end up needing a yellow perpetual storm or just yellow mana in general. I do feel like in many instances Bard still beats it out, which is one of the reasons I probably wouldn't say it's as high. But it still has its usefulness in teams that might need mana more than it needs the stats. Things like maybe Ward Breaker, Aquaticus, and other big endgame stuff that needs mana more than it needs the extra 1 to all stats. But it's, yep, definitely a good pickup. Great with yellow, and obviously insanely good with Stryx troops. All the Stryxes that you get from Stone Song, as well as just in general from the Kingdom of Suncrest. And as Suncrest gets more options, it's probably going to become even better. And it probably is one of the best Kingdom synergies as well within its own Kingdom. Definitely a really, really solid pure Kingdom team. So that's something else to consider, which makes some of the events related to it easier, such as the class event for it. But anyways, guys, that's all for this video. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below, as well as any other team suggestions that you might have. And hope you all have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone!